It wouldn't be an episode if I didn't have at least one travel issue to tell you about. In this one, I've got two. Stick with me.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is iCantCU. Now, here's David.
Welcome back to another episode of iCantCU, your window into a world where blindness doesn't dictate ability. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really do appreciate you joining me for this episode, and welcome inside Studio B. A lot of clothing piled on that chair there, mostly outerwear. Thank you, though, for joining me. And I did mention two travel issues. I'll talk to you about those, as well as I'll tell you a little bit about the NFB of Pennsylvania State Convention. And that's the primary reason why I've only recorded one episode per month for the last 2 or 3 months. And this one, I guess, will be the November episode. So as I've been talking about for the last few months, the NFB of Pennsylvania, National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania State Convention was in Harrisburg from the 13th to the 16th of November. I was the chair for the event this year. It was a lot of work. There was more work than really what needed to be, primarily because of nfbofpa.org. We had just switched over. We had redone our site, going from a WordPress site to Drupal, using Civi CRM to do forms and things like that. That was such a monumental task, primarily because I've never used Drupal before and I've never used Civi CRM before. And it became an issue where in WordPress, I could write a form, create a form within 15 minutes and have it up and running. I spent 4 hours more than once trying to create forms and manipulate forms so that they were able to take payments and things like that. We had a lot of people have problems with registering for our convention. We had people having problems to register as an exhibitor. And when I say register, I don't mean just signing up and getting on a list. I mean paying for it as well. So that took so much time, hence the one episode a month for the last few months. But the convention is now over and the Patent Tech Adventures is over. That was the week after the convention, which I had initially forgotten about, and I thought I was in the clear come November 17th, which happened to be Ziggy's birthday. I thought I was in the clear, but November 18th, I was in Malvern, and November 20th, I was in Harrisburg. I actually went back and stayed overnight from the 19th to the 20th because I didn't want to get up before I had to go to bed on the 20th to get a train to Harrisburg in the morning. So let's talk about the convention first. The convention, I think it went okay, maybe even better than okay. A lot of folks had said that they thought it went well. I always think that we can do more. And I don't know that I'm ever satisfied, but we raised decent amount of money with sponsors, $10,750. We did about $2,800 at our auction. We did about $5,000, a little more than $5,000. The Saturday night event is called the Banquet. It's a very nice sit-down meal. Everybody's dressed up. And at the end, after everybody's eating and we hear a keynote speech, this year it was from Anil Lewis, who is one of the executive directors of NFB. And after that, Lynn Heights, our president, said, I have $50. I'm going to put it into this envelope. Who else has money to blah, 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 blah. So people start putting money in. Somebody did $2,000. One chapter did $1,000. Keystone chapter did $500. I would have liked to have done more, but we did $500. And other folks were giving $400, $200, this and that and the other. So all told, it was a little over $5,000, which was very nice. Very nice that we were able to do that. So that's how the convention goes. We had Thursday night, one of the very cool things, and I can almost guarantee it's a keeper because everybody seemed to have fun. Most people, sorry, not everybody. Most people seemed to have fun. It was Family Feud. We had 4 teams, 5 players each. The winning team, each player got a $50 Amazon gift card. And it was a lot of fun. The losing teams, which I was on one of the losing teams, although Anil was on my team and he said, "We didn't lose, we won a candy bar. How could you lose when you get a candy bar at the end?" And that's true. I got Reese's peanut butter cups, delicious. But we didn't we didn't walk away with the $50 gift cards from Amazon. So that was a lot of fun. The auction, as always, is a lot of fun. I bid on a lot of cookies. And one of the things that came with one of the bundles of cookies that I won were cookies from Connie, who is from Erie, but she also included, it's called sponge candy. And it is so good. And I guess it's something from the Erie area. It's basically, I guess it's chocolate covered honeycomb. I think that's the best way to describe it. It is so good. The chocolate is good. I don't know the name of the manufacturer. Just delicious. Absolutely delicious. And I love it. I still have a couple of pieces left upstairs in the kitchen. But that was a lot of fun. And again, everything went fairly smoothly. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The police were called one night. Can't get into it. Just know that they came. Nobody was arrested, but they came. And we were one of the ones that had asked for the police to be called. But it was, hiccups here and there. Food, for the most part, was pretty good. Some people didn't like some of the things they got. You're never gonna satisfy 100% of the people. You can try and do the best you can. The hotel staff was pretty good to us. Whenever I asked someone, "Hey, could you do this?" We had a member who had some issues and actually is going to have surgery sometime in December, but she wanted to pack her meal and take it out of the room, which shouldn't have been allowed, but they allowed her to do it. And that was appreciated. There was another issue with someone else, and that was taken care of. They really went all out at the Best Western premiere in Harrisburg, from Jose and Victoria and Moses and a few other folks who I don't know their names. Just outstanding service that we got. Some of them went above and beyond to the point where we had to tell our members to stop asking, because what was happening, the way the hotel was set up, it was, I don't want to say it was tricky, but some of our members kind of got spun around a few times where they needed help to get from the front desk to where our room was, meaning our meeting room. And they were always asking the front desk, "Hey, could you show me where it is? Could you take me over there?" Which is not one of the things that the NFB prides itself on. They want you to figure it out and do it. And when you ask for that assistance, maybe you're not paying full attention to how to get from point A to point B, and then you constantly have to ask. We took care of that, and that was done. The hotel is comfortable. Again, it was, in general, I thought it went well, and most folks were happy. Now, I'm saying that one of the things that I've been doing, I didn't think it was right to send out a blanket thank you email to each attendee. I emailed everyone individually. It was like I was thanking folks for coming to my bar mitzvah and giving me a gift from back in 1977. That's what I felt like. Now, it was a little bit different because I had a general framework of what I was going to say. So they all started out, "Hi, so-and-so. Thanks for attending the 2025 state convention in Harrisburg." Then there was another sentence about some things that went on, and then I personalized it. "I appreciate your help doing this," or "It was nice to speak to you about that," and so forth and so on. And then the final paragraph usually ended with, "We're going to have a survey go out. Please fill it out, be honest, and let us know what you liked, what you didn't like." And that survey is coming out on Monday, the 1st of December. So that will be the telltale of how it actually went, because it's anonymous and folks will hopefully give us the truth about how they felt about everything. The rooms, their sleeping rooms, the meeting rooms, the food, all of that stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing the responses. Again, I've already received a lot of emails saying, "Hey, this went great, and here's what I loved," and so forth and so on. That's all great, but I need to know any issues. I found out about an issue where someone had requested a handicapped sleeping room and they didn't get it. I don't know if there was a little bit of confusion between, you know, there's blind folks asking for a handicap room. Maybe they thought, oh, well, they mean they're blind and they need a handicap room. We don't really need to give them the actual handicap room. But this was somebody who needed the handicapped room and didn't get one, with the grab bars and whatnot in the bathroom. So I wish that had been brought to my attention before the end of the convention. It would have been easier to handle than once it's over. Once it's over, I can't help. But there was one main travel issue, and I'll have to see if I could find it. We had our convention in Harrisburg a couple of years ago, and when we were leaving from Harrisburg to come back to Philadelphia, there was a whole bunch of us on a train on a Sunday afternoon. And one of our members and one of the red caps got into it a little bit, where another one of the red caps called for backup. I don't know what that means when you have a bunch of non-police asking for backup. But some of the folks there don't understand, and I'm talking about the red caps and Amtrak, don't understand how to help us. And I always joke that this person had their picture up at the station there in Harrisburg. Well, after going to Harrisburg for our convention, my picture may also now be up in the train station in Harrisburg. Here's what happened. No problem getting on. Again, a whole bunch of us, I think there were 17 or 20 of us that took this one train out to Harrisburg on a Wednesday morning. I guess it was Wednesday morning. When we got to Harrisburg, just afternoon, one of the red caps from Harrisburg came onto the train, and I was sitting with Chip, and we were getting our luggage down from up top, and the red cap said to him, okay, just follow me. And I was getting my bag down, and I was going to follow them, and as I'm following them, Chip got a little spun around as he got in between the two cars. Once you get in between the two cars, you usually can go to the right or the left, depending on which side the platform is on, to exit the train. Well, he walked past the first exit and then got spun around. And so while he was spinning around, I was going to get off at the first open door that I felt. And as I started to get off the train, the red cap starts, no, wait, no, not there, no. What do you mean? There's an exit. It's right there. I can tell. No, you come follow me because we have the bridge. I said, I can easily step over the 6-inch gap that's there. I've taken this train, I don't know how many times, especially in the last few months. He said, no, safety first is our main concern. Follow me to stay with him, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I said, all right, I'll do it. Because I'm always fearful that if I say, no, I got this, and then don't got it, and miss the gap, run into a pole that might be on the other side that I don't know is there, whatever the case may be, the guy's going to say, well, I told you, you shouldn't have done that. So I followed Chip and this guy, the red cap or the brown shirt, whatever you want to call him, because that was how they dealt with us. If you're not familiar with the brown shirts, look it up. We all get off the train, and I think on the car that Chip and I were on, I think it was only he and I. I don't think there was any of us in the going to the convention, meaning blind folks. We get off and we're all standing on the platform as everybody's getting off from the other car. And the same guy, I don't know his name, is saying, all right, grab someone and we're going to single file, blah, blah, blah. I said, no. I said, hold on a second. And I was already a little agitated. And again, probably Hernandez tone comes out. And I said, this is how it works. And I explained to him, I said, first of all, you don't tell anybody to grab anybody else. That doesn't happen. If someone wants an elbow or a shoulder to hold on to, that's fine. But that's agreed upon by the two people, the grabber and the grabbee. You don't just tell somebody to grab onto someone. It doesn't work that way. Second of all, single file doesn't work for us. It's usually either side by side or slightly behind someone and to the right or the left, depending on which side they're grabbing onto. and we made it somehow to the elevator and upstairs, and again, somewhere somewhere in the Harrisburg train station, you'll see a picture of me probably with horns coming out of my head or fingers behind them or whatever. So we got to the main area of the train station, which is this big wide open space that is never full of anybody because it's just not a very busy station. Capital of Pennsylvania, you'd think it'd be busier. It's not. The Best Western Premier has a shuttle, a free shuttle from the airport or the train station. They were busy loading up. They took the first 9 or 10 people. There were still 9 or 10 of us waiting. So we got to meet and talk with a few of the folks who were on there. I talked to one lady named Barbara, who, when she asked where I was from, and I said, we lived in media for so many. Oh, I used to love to go to media. I saw Cream in media. She loved going to concerts in media. I said, what do you mean? Media, Pennsylvania, media, Delaware County? Yeah, I saw Cream and so Eric Clapton was there before they were, and she's mentioning all these bands that played in media. I couldn't believe it. So I thought that was cool. So that was interesting. We get on the shuttle, we go to the hotel, not an issue. Everything bing, bang, boom. Again, the hotel was very easy to deal with, very helpful. Might there have been a person or two that was less than helpful? I'm sure there was. I never encountered them. Now, the other thing was they knew that I was the convention chair and knew to come to me when there was an issue, like when there was an issue with one of our members and where the police needed to be called. They came to me. But everybody was so helpful. And again, the rooms are comfortable. It was all in all, it was a good time. And a lot of folks learned a lot of things. And as I'm talking about this, Jane was there, and I'll get into how Jane helped in a minute. But Jane was there and she took quite a few photos, which I'll be putting them up. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see some things that went on there. It's unfortunate that when you see some of the speakers, you see one of those bellhop carts behind the person to their left, which we should have moved. And I think we did move a few times, and then somebody kept pushing it back closer to the center. It had some gear on it and some other things on it that unfortunately is now in just about every picture of what was going on at the podium. Jane came down. I asked Jane, as soon as I was named convention chair, I asked Jane to help out. It's kind of what Jane does in her day-to-day business at the PR agency that she works at. So I knew it would be helpful and she would be a great asset to have help me out. And it was outstanding. I wouldn't have been able to do everything that I did without Jane coming down. And initially, when I thought, hey, I'm going to be the convention chair, maybe Liz could help me. But we have the dog and we weren't going to bring the dog with us. And I thought, if we're going to have Jane come and stay at our house, why not just have her help me and let Liz go to work at Walden and take care of Ziggy, and we'd have somebody come and check on Ziggy during the day for the 2 days that I wasn't going to be home, and Liz had a half day on Friday, so we didn't need anybody on Friday. But Jane was so helpful. She came in on a later train from New York to Harrisburg, and we ended up having dinner at a restaurant that I absolutely love. If you're ever in Harrisburg, there's a Mexican place called El Sol. It's not too far from the train station, not too far from the state capitol. Really good food, and Jane really enjoyed it. That's the 3rd or 4th time I was there. I've liked it every time I've been there. Again, good stuff. And if you if you have Hilton Honors dining, you get points for that too, which I didn't know, but that's always a bonus. But that was good. That's the only night that we really went out. The only night that I left the hotel was the first night we were there because there was no convention stuff on Wednesday night. We were setting up the audio and doing all that sort of stuff. But Jane came in, she got settled, then we went out to the restaurant to get dinner. So that was great. Now, I mentioned going to a thing called Tech Adventures. On Sunday morning, I had asked Anil Lewis, our national rep, if I could use his keynote speech from the banquet as an episode of White Canes Connect. And he said yes. And I said, okay, before you leave, I'd like to get you to do the intro for it. And I saw him get up, and I ran over to him and I said, hey, could you do the intro? And it's funny, he called it White Cane Connect instead of White Canes Connect. And I said, all right, well, everything else was good. Just say White Canes Connect and I'll fix it. And he did, and I fixed it. And it came out, the sound was great. Edit was not noticeable, which to me, when I edit something, that's how you want it to be. But when you make a great edit and nobody knows it's there, that's also the nobody knows it's there, so they don't know what kind of magic you just did. But it's how you want it to be. So I got that, and so he did that, and we talked a little bit, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I just found out today that I'll be back here in a couple days." I thought I had some more time to recover and get situated, but I had something on Tuesday, something on Thursday, and so forth and so on. He said, "Oh, you're busy." And I said, "Yeah." I said, I was hoping not to have too much to do right after, but I did, and it was not a big deal. And it actually went well, both events. I'll tell you the hiccup in the Malvern event on Tuesday. But I talked to him, and we shook hands, and he headed off. He was flying back down to Atlanta, which I was surprised, a direct flight from Harrisburg to Atlanta. I don't know why I was surprised at that. I think he said he flew Delta, which Atlanta is a big hub for Delta, evidently, and he had no issues with traveling, which it was during that time where I guess the government was still shut down, but he got in no issues. We traveled no issues with other than with the red cap, and all was good. I got off in Philly. Jane stayed on the train going home. She went home to New York. There are probably a dozen trains per day that go from New York to Harrisburg and Harrisburg to New York. And of course, that means Philadelphia. Now, there is one of those trains that doesn't come from New York that I don't know where it starts, but it goes from Philadelphia all the way to Pittsburgh, and it ends in Pittsburgh. I don't think it starts in New York, but I don't remember. But there's one a day. It leaves Philadelphia around 12:42 p.m. And the return trip is 7:30, leaves Pittsburgh at 7:30 in the morning. It's a train I've taken a couple of times, maybe 3 times. So the Tech Adventures, let me tell you, Patton is the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network. They are an organization that helps students get assistive technology and training and things like that, both blind, deafblind, things like that. Tech Adventures is an event that they have. I told you last month I did one in Pittsburgh on October 13th. I did the one in Malvern on November 18th, and then the one in Harrisburg on November 20th. The one in Malvern, and it's basically like an exhibit hall. And you talk to people as they come up. They're mostly teachers of the blind and things like that. They're counselors and that sort of stuff. So it's nice to talk to those folks and how we can help them help their students or maybe their clients, whatever it might be, getting services and helping them with if it's a student that's blind and their parents are not. The parents, of course, are freaking out. Hey, I got this blind child. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? What's going to happen with them as they grow up? And for us, it's, look, you got this. It's not a problem. Would it be better if they could see? Sure. But they can't. And here's how we're going to help you help them. And so that's what it's there for. So in Pittsburgh, I think I told you, I talked to the same kid who was at last year's event. I talked to him this year. I don't know that I talked to anybody in Malvern this year that I talked to last year. But we did talk to a bunch of folks in Malvern. The issue in Malvern was coming home. And Malvern is probably about, 20 to 30 miles from my house in Swarthmore. It is not in the middle of nowhere, but it is not a bustling metropolis either. I ordered a ride share at 2:15 to come home. It said 16 minutes. At 2:30, it said that this guy was gonna be 10 minutes away. At 2:45, he was still 10 minutes away. And at 2:48, he canceled. So now I've been waiting around a half an hour, and they're starting the process all over again. It took somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes just to find me another driver who was then also 16 minutes away. I got into the car 1 hour after I ordered the lift. 1 hour, which is just so unacceptable. So by the time all was said and done, it took me, I don't want to say it took me 2 hours to get home, but theoretically it did, because I ordered at 2:15 and I got out of the car in my driveway at 4:15 or 4:20. So it was over 2 hours from the time I had wanted to leave. And again, there was rush hour traffic, and there was a wintry mix on the way home, so that kind of slowed things down. But like I told you last month, when I came into 30th Street Station in Philadelphia at 1 in the morning, and it took me about 50 minutes to get a driver, this was the same issue, but of course there were less drivers, even though it was 1 in the morning in Philly. Philly's obviously a bigger place than Malvern. So I don't know what the story was there. And it's so frustrating for that to happen. It wasn't a cheap ride. I don't remember what it was. I want to say it was in the 40s to get home, $40, $50. I don't remember. But it was just the amount of time I wasted standing there waiting for someone. And then, of course, I started to panic because my battery, I'm doing things on my phone, people are texting me, I'm answering emails and so forth. And I'm thinking, I don't have a charger, I didn't bring a cord, I didn't bring anything. What am I going to do if this driver cancels? I'm going to have an issue. And then I'm going to have to go inside and see if somebody can lend me a cord so I could top off a little bit. It was the second time in about a month. It was October 21st/22nd when I had the issue coming from 30th Street to my home after coming back from New York after an event, and now from Malvern to my house on November 18th. It's just frustrating, the amount of time that you waste. Now, here's the funny thing. So, as I mentioned at the top, instead of getting up before I typically go to sleep on the 20th, I decided it would be better if I stayed over. Did I want to spend the $128 that I ended up spending on the hotel room? No. But it was a much better option for me. The one issue was on the 19th, the Philly Meetup for the Blind had their annual Friendsgiving meetup, and it was at Schmidt's on South Street in Philadelphia, which I love. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? Go to Schmidt's, which I had committed to, and then go to Harrisburg. I checked the train schedule. I'm like, oh, there's a train that leaves Philadelphia at 10:05 p.m. Gets me to Harrisburg just after midnight. Great. Train ended up being a little bit late, but that was okay. So I did that, and I just took all the stuff that I was taking, and I wasn't taking a lot. I don't think it's in here. When I do these tech adventures, I have a suitcase full of NFB materials, Braille cards with the alphabet on them, all sorts of pamphlets and literature, these things called kernel books. And when I first went to Pittsburgh a couple of years ago to do tech adventures, I put all that in my backpack and had my clothes in the suitcase. But I only need one night of clothes going to Harrisburg. So I thought, you know what, let's get a cheapo suitcase that has wheels, and it'll put all the literature and the NFB of Pennsylvania tablecloth in there that we use at all the different exhibit halls that we do stuff at. And as you'll see in the images that are coming up from our state convention, we used it there as well. It has our logo on it and so forth. I had that, and in my backpack, I had my clothes and my toiletries. So I took those into the restaurant with me, had them right behind me while we ate dinner, and I talked with people. Got to the train station, no issue. Got to Harrisburg, no issue. And I had the night before when I when I had booked the hotel room, it wasn't even the night before, it was the same day I was traveling out there. The guy said, his name was Greg, I think. He said, "Oh, I'll be your shuttle driver tomorrow or later today." Well, it turned out, of course, to be tomorrow because I got in after midnight on November 20th. But he was the driver, so he was already there at the station when I got off the train, and he had actually called me when I was on the train, and like I said, the train was running 10 or 15 minutes late, so he was sitting there waiting when we got there, and I got in. Now here was the scary thing. It's just after midnight, and because it was just me, I considered just figuring, "Hey, it's just me. I'm just gonna use an Uber or a Lyft to get from the train station to the hotel." But I don't know what kind of area that is at night. I don't know how bright it's gonna be. I got off the train, normally lit platform. I go up the stairs or the elevator, I don't remember which, get into the train station. The station itself, where you sit and wait for the trains, pretty well lit because they have a screen at every set of stairs that has the schedule. And so that's bright. I don't know if the lights were on, I don't remember, but that was fairly well lit. And as you walk to leave the station, the area that you wait, you go down a couple of steps and there's a hallway. If you go to the left, the bathrooms are down that way. Very familiar, very familiar where that is because I always have to use the men's room when I get off the train. And so I go there, but then you walk through another set of doors and it's that wide open expanse of the train station. To the left is the ticket window, and to the right, there's a little store. There's only one store. You go to a lot of train stations, that's almost like a mall when you go, whether it's Union Station down in DC or Penn Station, where they have all sorts of eateries and other places to shop, Walgreens and Duane Reade and Hudson News and whatnot in New York. One place. And it's primarily food. I don't know if they have newspapers and magazines there, but I think you can also get the lottery there. And so I walked through those doors and there wasn't a light on. There was not one light on in that area. And of course, the doors are unlocked to the station, so anybody could come in. So it wasn't too different for me because I can't really see that well to begin with, but somebody who has sight and is now walking through this pitch black area with only some light coming in from street lights coming through the windows out front, not even the lights on the building once you walk through the doors to exit out onto the sidewalk were on. So it was so dark. I was so glad that I used the shuttle. And again, that was the main reason for using the shuttle because I didn't know how it was going to be. And I didn't want to stand there for 10 minutes or 15 minutes waiting for a Lyft or an Uber in the dark without knowing, hey, who's around me? I know there's not going to be anybody from the station there. So I was glad I did the shuttle. Coming back from the tech adventures, I go into the train station, and typically the train to Philadelphia leaves from, I guess it's gate 3, I think. It's the last one down. The elevator's to the left, the stairs are to the right. When I have luggage, I usually take the elevator because I just don't want to stumble down the stairs with my cane and with my suitcase. So I'm standing there waiting by the elevator, and this little kid comes up to me and he starts to grab my cane, and I hear his mother say, "No, no, that's not mama's." And I didn't know if she had a cane or that the girl sounded young. And I thought, "Oh, is this somebody else who's blind, or is this somebody who's there with a parent, their parent, saying that it's meaning this kid's grandmother?" It ended up being hers, and she was traveling on to Baltimore. I don't know if she was going to the National Center NFB headquarters or what the story was there. I don't know who she was, but she was also blind, and she had this little boy, and turns out another little kid, baby, infant, which I didn't know because I don't know, the kid slept the whole time. I don't think I ever heard the kid make a peep. And we all got off in Philadelphia, but while I was waiting to get on the train, I hear that voice. I hear that red cap that gave me all the issues. And he came over and he said hello to me. And I thought, oh boy. So I said hello to him. And as we were getting on the elevator, he and another red cap were talking about Zach Braun of the Eagles. And I said to him as we were going down in the elevator, I said, "Did something happen to Zach Braun?" And he said, "No, no, we were just talking blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay." it worried me the way you guys were talking. I thought something might have happened to him. He's out on IR, whatever the case may be. But we talked a little bit about that, and that made things a little bit better between me and him. But I'm telling you, this guy was brutal, both a couple of years ago and then when we were there coming to the convention this year. And I don't think he took my picture down off the wall there at Harrisburg, but at least there was a little bit of a connection that way. And we got onto the train. I got into I think they call it the ADA seating or something like that. I forget what they call it. I like sitting there because there is a lot of room in front of the seat so that I could put my suitcase without having to put it up above me or without having to put it in a rack and then go find my seat. Because if I have to put it in a rack and then I got to find it on my way out, chances are I'm not going to find it, especially the bag with the literature, because it's a solid color. I think it's green. I don't even know. It's either green or blue or black, but I think it's green. Second guess would be blue, but I think I picked green. And again, I don't know, and the only way I would know, there is a luggage tag on there that has an iCantCU business card in it. This time at the train station, not an issue. So all in all, the travel was okay, other than the 2 hiccups that I mentioned. They were the only 2 times I was on a train the whole month of November, and I'm not scheduled to go anywhere for the foreseeable future. Jane had asked me if I wanted to come up to New York to go to Winterfest because she has the 15th off, but I have an event in Philadelphia on the 15th at St. Lucie Day School, which is the Keystone chapter gives gifts to the kids, and we do a pizza party for them for the holidays, and we get cookies or cupcakes or things like that. And the kids love it because they get a gift and Santa comes in, they sing a couple of songs. We like it because we talk to them about what we do in the NFB and so forth and so on. So I couldn't go to see Jane and do all that stuff because I would also love to go to Meta has a place called Meta Labs that I would love to go to try out some of the other, their new display glasses and see how that works. But unfortunately, have to go to St. Lucie's that day, and I'm the point person for that, so I can't skip out on that. So I can't go up to see Jane for that day. That would have been fun, though. That would have been a lot of fun. So I don't see any kind of travel for me through the end of the year. I guess things could change, but that's the story that went on with the convention and with the travel and the rideshare. And the rideshare always seems to be an issue, and it's frustrating. Because unlike a sighted person who might have a car and could drive if they chose, we don't have that option. And SEPTA is now finally getting back. It seems to be getting back into the swing of things where it may be somewhat reliable again. It was not very reliable, as I told you in the last episode, where trains were getting canceled left and right and ended up sticking me the one night. Back in early October, I ended up paying $150 something for a rideshare to go to an event up in Easton that would have been nothing because I would have taken the train to about within an hour of Easton and then gotten a ride from someone, which I couldn't do at that point. So looks fairly calm for the rest of the year. And hopefully I'll have some other things to talk about. I do want to get back into the weekly episodes. Fingers are crossed that come December, which is just a day or two away, I will get back into the swing of things. I really do appreciate you listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening via the podcast. I do appreciate your support for these episodes. And it's good to see that when I do drop a new episode, I still get similar numbers that I was getting when I was dropping one every week. So I do appreciate that. If you have interest in learning more about what went on at the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania State Convention, we are dropping bits of programming over at White Canes Connect, the podcast of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Like I mentioned, the keynote from our banquet with Executive Director Anil Lewis is now out there. I will be dropping more things as time goes on. I think the next thing I drop is going to be a tech session with Jonathan Mosen. He presented at our tech seminar, which always kicks off the convention. But go over to White Canes Connect. The link is down below, whitecanesconnect.com. You'll see the latest episodes, and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts, you can find White Canes Connect. So that'll do it for this episode. I really do appreciate you joining me for this episode of iCantCU. Please contact me if you have any questions, comments, show ideas, whatever it might be. You can email iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, or better yet, 646-926-6350. You've got up to 3 minutes. Please leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail, and I will use it on an upcoming episode. Again, 646-926-6350. Thank you so much for joining me. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining David on this episode of I Can't See You. Please subscribe on your favorite platform, like and comment on this episode on YouTube.